In present day, Serizawa sits in his own room aboard the carrier when Vivienne enters. They have a rather sweet conversation as he shows her the watch he still has from his father. He admits to being very reminiscent of his father, of the stories he told. He thinks about him a lot. After some talking, Vivienne asks what happened to him, his father that is. A silence follows, after which Serizawa states his father always promised to protect him. But sadly, he couldn't protect himself when the Americans bombed Japan in 1945. That's when they can hear many people outside in the hallway running around and yelling. Curious, they both head out and ask what's going on, to which one of the soldiers simply states that they got what they wanted, the mission is a success after all. We cut to the main deck where one of the helicopters lands after flying to the ruins of Madison Square Garden. In its net, we see one of the dead baby kaijus. Everyone is clapping and applauding, especially Newton acts very obsessed. They should sail back to Hong Kong as fast as possible. Nick agrees. Ford looks at the sight from a distance but acts fairly indifferent. It's clear he cares more about going home to his family and see his parents again than the actual mission at this point. Serizawa and Vivienne also arrive on deck and hope to God that this will work. However, as everyone cheers, Serizawa can't feel the same level of happiness. He can't stop thinking about what his father told him so long ago. Everything that has happened makes all the legends fit. He never fully believed it. Until now he knows these kaijus come from another world. That must mean all the other things are true as well. He immediately heads to Admiral Stenz on the bridge where he urges him to listen. Vivienne, Ford and some others also join them. A whole moment follows where Serizawa tries to explain everything that his father once told him. The portal, the titans, the ancient war. He tries to tell everything, but most of the people just look strange at him. Stenz loses it and stops the man from talking when he starts to talk about good titans. How can there be such a thing as a good kaiju? These monsters have done nothing but destroy and kill. Ford heavily agrees with the Admiral. Vivienne, however, urges them to listen to what he has to say. She has known Serizawa for years. She trusts him with all her heart and mind. But as Serizawa continues his talk about the ancient Titan War, Stenz finds it more and more far-fetched until it's brought up how the legends also talk about otherworldly creatures coming to Earth via a mystical doorway. A portal. Like the one they just discovered. Slowly but surely, Stenz opens up to what is being said, and the whole room is silenced when the doctor mentions the kaijus they have been fighting for years are just infants when compared to the monsters that are still to come. They can't hope to fight against them on their own. It's silent for a while, until Stenz asks if Serizawa still has access to these old stories and legends. The doctor claims he has them at his home in Tokyo. Stenz orders him to retrieve these books and use them. Use them and find clues, answers, keys, whatever. Anything. Serizawa immediately leaves to pack his things, but not before Vivienne tells him that she's going with him. They have been by each other's side for so long and she can feel a dark storm coming. She doesn't want to leave him alone. Serizawa is touched by this and thanks her. As the scientists leave, Stenz orders full speed for Hong Kong and contacts Admiral Stacker. Their mission has been a success and they have made a huge discovery on top of that. Now their hopes lie with the Legion of gathering Yaeger pilots at their headquarters. We finally head back to the military headquarters at Hong Kong, where we get a cool montage of all the different fractions gathering. We see helicopters and ships arriving as several giant Jaegers are brought inside the main hangar. We see Gypsy Danger representing the USA, Striker Eureka representing Australia, and also other ones such as Crimson Typhoon representing China, and Cherno Alpha representing Russia, and many more Jaegers still to come. It's an army of them. It's a grand and epic sight to behold. Stacker and Herc watch from their office above. Herc very subtly asks how his trip to Los Angeles was, but the Admiral remains silent on that, clearly hiding his disappointment. He will hold a speech for all the gathered soldiers and new recruits. Let's go meet them. In his own quarters, Raleigh wakes up and puts on his uniform. When someone knocks on his door, Raleigh assumes it's Stacker, but instead sees a woman standing there, calling herself Mako. He's taken aback as she claims Stacker sent her to greet him and take him to the hangar for the gathering. The two head down there, but Raleigh does confess his surprise. He's never seen her before. Is she a recruit? Another pilot? Who is she? Mako smiles but claims she wanted to keep that a surprise. She has heard a lot of great things about Raleigh from over a year ago when he was still a pilot. Some heroic deeds are brought up, but also the death of his brother. She is sorry about that, which he appreciates. Soon they arrive at the hangar where almost all the people are. Stacker and Herc are on a platform as everyone gathers in front of it. We see Ops, Chuck, Gottlieb, but also newcomers such as Alexis and Sasha Kaidanovsky, husband and wife, pilots of the Russian Cherno Alpha. Also the three Wei brothers are there, the pilots of the Chinese Crimson Typhoon. Lots of people. Stacker gives a whole speech as he is grateful so many of them have joined their final stand here at Hong Kong. They face incredible odds, but they will fight harder and stand faster than anyone before. Their fate rests on the hand of several scientists who are still awaited to return from a mission abroad. But until then, they will be here, training and improving, growing as a team, growing as brothers and sisters. Everyone claps and cheers, and students spread out towards the several training areas for them to use. Stacker approaches Raleigh and Mako, introducing the two again to each other. It's a nice moment as Mako acts slightly confident and excited, while Raleigh is equally curious to learn more about her. Stacker claims Mako is a newcomer here and wishes to learn more about the art of piloting a Yaeger. He thought Raleigh would be a good candidate for that, and Raleigh is happy enough to oblige. At the laboratory, Gottlieb is experimenting a new invention on some old kaiju blood they had gathered, but it fails. It's revealed he has built a prototype machine to connect with kaijus on a deeper level to find out more about their ancestry and where they come from. Nothing works, sadly enough. When someone suggests using some of Newton's designs, hinting at another machine meant to undergo a drift with a kaiju, Gottlieb blocks this and claims that's far too dangerous. Someone could die trying to do that with a kaiju. Besides, the prototype was meant to work if you could have an actual kaiju brain, and no one has that. Raleigh and Mako are walking along the several training rooms as we can see all the pilots and recruits doing various exercises. There's a room with an entire parkour, we have a boxing and martial arts room, there's even a firing range. Everything is here. Mako is extremely excited and asks Raleigh a bunch of things. It's question after question until it gets comical. Raleigh eventually chuckles and asks where this fascination comes from, to which Mako simply says she has always felt like that. She's simply destined to become a Yaeger pilot. Raleigh smiles, claiming her parents must be proud of her. And that's when Mako turns silent, however, and walks away, although trying to act like nothing happens. This reaction does confuse Raleigh a bit. In the Yaeger Hall, all the massive robots are stored next to each other. Stacker walks past them with Ops as they check each one. All of them are in great shape and are being coated with extra armor and guns as they speak. All the way at the end, however, Ops shows Stacker their latest addition to their American arsenal. It's the new Mark VI category of Jaegers, made to be more agile and faster. It's the biggest Yaeger of the entire arsenal, called November Ajax. Stacker approves, but sighs when they hear they don't have anyone officially qualified to operate it. There are simply too few skilled pilots against too many new recruits with too few skill. They need to train the newcomers fast if they wish to make a decent stand for when the attack comes. Later, Ops is at the control room where they also monitor the activity of Hong Kong and the sea. He decides to play the message again that they received from Admiral Stenz earlier, telling them about the results of the Manhattan mission. Ops locates the coordinates where the supposed portal should be, pinpointing it somewhere in the West Atlantic Ocean. Satellite images show how several extra air carriers have already arrived to lock the place down. Although this isn't public knowledge, it's clear how the major military fractions have learned from it at this point. Stacker walks through several training rooms as he watches the soldiers train. He sees Herc giving basic Yaeger piloting lessons to newcomers, and elsewhere Chuck is shooting new prototype anti-kaiju weapons at the firing range. All the way back, Raleigh and Mako are seen sparring against each other in the martial arts room. Several people are watching them as well as they cheer for whoever wins. It's a fun scene as Raleigh wins a round, Mako wins another. Raleigh eventually reveals he's going easy on her since he doesn't want to hurt her. This triggers something in Mako, claiming she was doing the same thing for him. Now she asks him not to hold back, which he does. When he wants to attack her, she manages to block and floor him after several moves. Raleigh is taken aback. After a second round, Raleigh tackles her pretty hard on the floor. More and more people gather around to support whoever they're voting for, making it seem like a game. It goes from fun to more serious as Raleigh and Mako end up going at each other with some serious force, clearly trying to outdo the other. They end up on a tie, both having won 6 rounds each. When they go at it again, they end up almost knocking the other out, but they stop just in time. Raleigh could knock her out if he wants, but instead he gives her his hand and helps her back up. Several people chuckle about it and make some fun. Until Chuck shows himself. He is unimpressed and challenges Mako to a match as well. Since she is a newcomer, she should learn from the most experienced in his opinion. Raleigh is clearly annoyed and tries to convince Mako not to go through with this, but she is confident enough. Trust her. Chuck and Mako fight one single match, and she suffers a bad defeat when Chuck shows no mercy on her. Without actually injuring her, he does land very hard blows across her body and face. Mako does her best, but Chuck is clearly far better. When he tackles her hard on the floor, Raleigh steps in and pushes him away. He is enraged. What is wrong with him? Can he give them all a break for a single day? Chuck is unfazed. He claims it's better that she learns now that she's not ready at all instead of when she's in an actual Jaeger. Mako gets up, but Raleigh now challenges Chuck to a duel himself. At this point, dozens of people are standing around them. Chuck and Raleigh go at it in a pretty intense duel as they jab and kick at each other. They constantly throw each other around and on the floor, while everyone around them is cheering them on. Mako just watches in silence. Chuck ends up even knocking Raleigh almost out, again showing how he's a far superior fighter. But that's when Stacker enters the room and orders everyone to stop this childish act. Everyone instantly freezes and stops what they're doing. Raleigh and Chuck are ordered to come with the Admiral to his office at once. At his office, the Admiral really lets out a lot of frustration towards the 2 pilots. Chuck is disciplined for his erratic behavior, but once again he shows no remorse. He genuinely believes they got what they deserved. Raleigh defends himself and accuses Chuck of attacking Mako in an unfair fight. They both go at each other, clearly feeling nothing but hate and disrespect. Stacker eventually orders silence again and forbids the 2 of coming near each other for the remainder of the day. If anything like this happens again, they'll receive a punishment accordingly. After this, they're sent away, the 2 of them. Herc is awaiting his son outside and immediately confronts him. He is outraged and lets out a massive rant for everyone to hear, including Raleigh. Chuck remains stubborn, and when he refuses to apologize or anything, Herc makes a very drastic decision and strips his son from his right to pilot alongside him. He will no longer operate Striker Eureka. This clearly shocks Chuck as he yells back, "He's the best pilot here! They can't just suspend him, they need him!" Herc, immensely disappointed, claims he thought his son would be a stronger man, but he's the exact opposite. It's now that the father leans in very closely to his son and whispers in his ear that none of this is ever going to bring her back. This silences Chuck, and he leaves for his barracks. Raleigh visits Mako at her barracks as he checks up on her. She remains strong, but Raleigh assures her there's no weakness in admitting you're in pain. Mako states her time of suffering has passed. She made that promise to herself a while ago, and she intends to keep that promise. This makes Raleigh curious as to where she comes from, but he decides to let it rest. The two sit next to each other as they continue to have a casual, friendly chat. At the control room, Ops is still monitoring the activity around the portal area in the Atlantic. Everything seems all quiet, until suddenly they detect a heavy subterranean earthquake taking place at the sites. They detect massive movement from deep below. Ops instantly calls Stacker to head to the room. Something is happening. On the air carrier, Stenz is also monitoring the same activity. He demands to see the images of the underwater drones, which he gets. And on the screens, everyone can see how there isn't another kaiju appearing out of the portal, but instead the portal itself seems to pulsate, as if it's sending out shockwaves in all directions. These waves happen in a very specific pattern and spread further and further around the whole world. Stenz stares in confusion. What on earth could this mean? In the helicopter over the Indian Ocean, Serizawa and Vivienne see the same thing, as they see the shockwaves are visible on the surface of the water. Serizawa stares with deep concern. They need to get his books and head to the headquarters, right now! Something is coming. Something new. Something worse.